Alright, what's up guys? This is the first tutorial that I'm doing for you guys. Just got the camera all set up, figured out. I have no idea what I'm doing with cameras, so it took a little bit of time, but we got there in the end. So today I'm going to be showing you how to paint this Poxwalker. I haven't actually painted one of these before, so I guess this will be a cool little video, because this is just going to be going out to the Patreon guys. This will actually be a cool video for you guys because you'll get to see just how I figure things out as I go. Really, I'm going to make this up as I go along and see how it comes out. I've got a rough idea in my head of the steps that I'm going to take with it, so I'll take you through that. If I sound, I know I sound crap, by the way. I'm just getting over a flu, so I apologize for that. But yeah, let's just get into the video. So the first step will be surface primer, Vallejo surface primer grey. So we're going to airbrush that over. I prefer to use airbrush primers purely because you get thinner, like a thinner, more even layer. And when you, not always, if you prep it correctly, you shouldn't have this problem. But a lot of the time, when you use a grey or a white primer from a rattle can, you'll get more of a chalky finish, and you'll never have that with an airbrush primer. Alright, now that that's done, I'm going to airbrush a thin down layer of Cadian Flesh Tone from Games Workshop, or Citadel. My thinking behind this is I want him, obviously he is human, I want him to have, you know, a more human appearance to him. It will end up being a much lighter, pallid, dead flesh, but I want the base to be a very human color. Now the final airbrush layer for the flesh, I'm going to be using Pallid Witch Flesh, also from Citadel. We're going to do what's called a zenithal highlight, so essentially we'll be spraying top down, and that'll allow us to miss a lot of the deeper shadow and, you know, give it more of a natural look. Alright, now that the airbrush layers are done, I'm going to start playing around with some washes. I'll start out with Agrax Earthshade, Reichlet Flesh Shade, and Druchii Violet. I'm going to be using Vallejo airbrush thinner with these, just to water them down, and I'm going to be picking out the recesses, areas around, you know, boils, using the purple, you know, underneath the eyes, around the nose, things like that. And we'll see where we can get with this flesh. Now that the airbrushing on the flesh is done, I'm going to start playing around with some inks. I'm going to be using airbrush thinner just to thin it down a bit. So we're going to be starting out with Druchii Violet, Agrax Earthshade, and Reichlet Flesh Shade. We're going to be just using these two mostly in recesses, just to bring out a bit more depth, and then I'll be playing around with the violet just around boils, around where maggots are moving, underneath the eyes, around the mouth, nose, horns, areas like that, just to bring the flesh out a lot more. Alright, now that the inks are done, I'm going to start working on the pants. So I want these to be orange. Now, the color I really want for the orange is Troll Slayer Orange from Citadel. But it's a layer paint and the pigment in it is pretty weak. So going straight to that over the pants, even though the pants are already nearly white, it would take many layers. So I'm going to do a quick base coat of P3 Kador Red. It's a bit of a heavier pigment, so we should get some easier coverage. Then I can layer up to Troll Slayer quite easily from that, and then shade it back and highlight it from there. Alright, so now that this base layer of Kador Red is done, I'm going to move on to the Troll Slayer. We're just going to go over the entire thing, and then I'll wash it back with Agrax Earthshade, then we'll relayer it with Troll Slayer, and then we'll get to the highlights. Alright, now that that's done, we'll hit it with some Agrax Earthshade. Alright, now that the wash is dried, we'll relayer it with more Troll Slayer. Alright, so I've layered it back up with Troll Slayer, but before highlighting it, I want it a little bit brighter, so I've mixed about 50-50 Uriel Yellow and Troll Slayer Orange. It's not exactly 50-50, I just kind of eyeballed it until it was to the point that I want it. And I'm just going to go in with a finer detail brush now, layer that in a little bit. I'll show you the quick way that I'll blend that in, because I don't want it to be too overpowering. So let's pick a decent surface for us to do. We'll do the top flap of this pouch. So we'll paint some over the corner like that and clean the brush off, and I'll start from the edge that I want it to fade away, and I'll just kind of blend it away. So it's a very, very subtle blend, but it's there, and once it's across the entire thing, it'll bring it up, and then we'll highlight it with pure yellow, and yeah, it should look a lot better. Alright, now that layering's done, we'll highlight it with Uriel Yellow, and then we'll highlight it with, we'll pick out just some of the higher edges with flash kits and see how that looks. Alright, since I've already got the yellows out, I think I'm gonna pick out the boils on the flesh of the Poxwalker. So to do that, it should be fairly quick and easy because I've already gone over them with the Druchii, so I know exactly where they all are. I'm gonna base coat them all in Uriel Yellow. Probably highlight them with flash kits, maybe do some flash kits plus white if that's not light enough, and then I think I'm also going to go around the edge of them with some watered down red, just to give them a really kind of, you know, pustulant, bloody kind of look to them. Alright, so having done the Uriel and Flash Gits yellow, I will do 50-50 Flash Gits and white, just so as I can get another, you know, pop of colour in there, make them stand out a little bit more and give them a bit more depth before I shade back the recesses with some watered down red. Alright, now with some watered down Evil Sun Scarlet, I'm going to just do the surround of the bigger boils. I don't want to do all of them. I don't want to get a bit too crazy with it. But we'll do the bigger ones and we'll see how that turns out. Alright, so that's actually turned out pretty cool. The next thing I think I'll do is just some of the little straps and pouches on him. So we're going to start out with some charred brown from Vallejo Game Color. We'll wash that back and then we'll add some Troll Slayer orange to that, and then we'll blend that out. Alright, so now I'm going to add some Troll Slayer to the charred brown, blend that out, and then we can wash it back again. Alright, so now that that's done, if I can even speak, we'll wash the straps and pouches with some Agrax, and then once that's dry, we'll re-highlight it with some of the same blend from before, just with more orange, so it'll be even brighter, and that'll be them done. Alrighty, so now we're going to add some more orange to this blend, and highlight all of the pouches. So I might actually, I'll just put a bit of orange there and just take a little bit of the brown from before, just so the orange isn't too overpowered. Now I've got it a bit brighter, we can highlight the pouches and straps. Alrighty, apologies for being cut short just before. Camera ran out of battery. So finished up on the highlights. So now I'm going to pick out all of the medals. So we're going to pick out the silver rings at the end of the straps around the pants, as well as the wrench and, well, yeah, just the wrench. There's going to be 2 metallics on the wrench. So first off, we're going to do all the silvers. So we're going to base coat that all with Vallejo Model Metallic Air Silver. Alright, now that the silver's down, we're going to start with bronze. So what I'm gonna do, well, brass really. So I'm gonna start that out with a base coat of Brassy Brass from Vallejo Game Color, and I'm gonna be putting that on the nail on the end of the wrench and the handle on the wrench, just to separate the metals a bit and give it a little bit more character. Alright, so now that they're down, I'm just going to quickly pick out the little bits of strap around the end of the wrench. I'm going to do that with, if I can find it, Vallejo Game Color Khaki, and then we're going to wash the whole thing and I'll layer it all back up. Alright, now that all the metallics are painted and they've all dried, I'm going to hit them up with a wash that I pretty much exclusively use on metallics now, and I like it for a lot of other things as well. It's a 50-50 mix of Vallejo Game Color Black Wash and Citadel Agrax Earthshade. So it's a nice, dark, dirty, grimy wash, and it's perfect. I've used Agrax as kind of my dual wash for a long time, really since it came out, and it's worked fantastically. But since I discovered this, it's just, I don't know how to describe it other than just pretty much perfect. I mean, you're not going to use it on everything. You're not going to use it on flesh. You're not going to use it on well, I can't really think of many things I wouldn't use it on. You know, I'd use it for panel lining, metallics, you know, all that kind of thing. It works, you know, brilliantly. It's basically Agrax Earthshade but better. It's closer to the old Games Workshop Devlin Mud, if you remember that, but it is a little bit darker and a bit more grimy. So I'm going to put one layer of that on. All the metallics here, see how I feel, and I'll often put another layer on, or if I don't want to darken the metallics too much more after one layer of this has gone on, I might just hit it with Agrax Earthshade after the fact. So we'll put this on, we'll see how it goes, let this dry and we'll come back to it. Alright, so now that the wash is on and it's dried, I'm pretty happy with where it is now. So we're going to go and relayer the metals. So I'm going to start with the brass. Essentially, all I'm going to do is layer it with some Vallejo Game Color Glorious Gold. We'll just do a brief, small highlight. If I can get some out, because there's not much left, but it's not like I need much. We'll just do from the top down, little outer edges, and just pick up some small highlights. Still keeping it looking very dirty and grimy, but just want a little bit of a metallic sheen flickering through there. And then we'll pick out the end of the nail as well, just on the outer edge here and here. So that's that. And then we're just going to take the same silver and relayer the silvers, really. So with the rings, I just want to pick it up where the bottom is, just where light would be shimmering off. And then for the actual end of the wrench, we're just going to be doing a straight edge highlight with this. So just picking out the edges, the side of your brush. Like so. And then we'll quickly do all the straps. So to finish off the straps, what I'm going to be doing is just using straight Vallejo Model Color Ivory. We'll may as well just take that from the top. And we'll just layer that over the washed down khaki. Alright, now I'm going to pick out the horns on the model. So with the same Vallejo Game Color khaki, we're just going to put a base coat of that on. Alright, now that the khaki's dried, I'm going to take the same ink that I used before on the metals and put that over. I was just going to use Agrax on it, but I want it to actually be a bit darker and a bit more grimy, considering the skin and the pants are both pretty light. Normally with horns, I build them up to a much lighter color, like almost an ivory. With these, I will do that, but I think, like the Noxious Blightbringer I painted and gave away before, I'm going to build it up and then to the end almost look have it almost look like it's charred or burnt. So we'll let that dry and then we'll layer it back up again. Alright, so the ink's dried, so I'm going to use a nice little mid-tone with Karak Stone, and we're going to lay that up. I'm going to make sure to keep the brush vertical, because I don't want any brush strokes going sideways. I want the stroke of the brush to follow the same lines as these cracks and splits down the length of the horns. The Carrick stones down. I've done a 50-50 mix of Carrick stone and model color ivory, so we'll layer that on and then we'll hit it with straight ivory, and then we will do that burnt chart effect to the tips of the horns. Alright, so now that that's dried, we'll do the last little step of ivory. And then the two colors I'll be using to do the chart effect will be Vallejo Burnt Umber and Games Workshop Abaddon Black. So making sure once again just to keep vertical, leaving a little bit of color behind every time. You don't have to blend this out perfectly. In fact, with horns sometimes it almost looks better for it to be a bit rougher. Just keeping vertical, really making those lines for the blends visible. I'll probably go back once again and hit some of those cracks and divots with the wash, just to make sure that they stand out, because as I said before, you can see now the horns are actually blending quite a bit with the skin, and that's not really what I want, but that's okay, because all will be fixed in due time. So now we're using Vallejo Model Air Burnt Umber just through an airbrush, and we're just going to hit the top areas of these horns. Then after that we'll use black on the top areas with an airbrush again, just at it, you know, with a slightly less amount of coverage. Alrighty, so now that that's all done, all we really have to do now is paint the maggots and attach them to a base. So for the maggots, I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to go for a bit more of a radioactive maggot look. All of the colors on this are very warm, so I do want a cold color somewhere. So I'm going to try for a green, or at least a green undertone to the maggots. So I'm gonna start with moot green. We're gonna wash it back with bale tarn green, and then we'll mix ivory into the green and layer up. So we'll see how that goes. Now I've been looking at the camera and I'll see if I can keep him in focus around here. It's a bit hard. I need to, for future, I need to hook him up to the computer, I think, or hook the camera up to the computer at least. Because at the moment I'm looking at the screen on the camera, but it's tilted upside down, so it's a bit sketchy for me to look at. And keeping this guy in focus and in frame, because I'm a lot closer now, is a bit more of a challenge. But we'll see how we go. So if we pick out the maggots, I'm just going to pick them all out in moot green right now. Wait for that to dry, although we shouldn't even really have to wait, because by the time I get around to the maggots, they should be, for the next stage, they should be dry. So just looking for them all. I want to make sure I don't miss any.
I also don't want my head in the frame. So we've got 2 there, we've got a few on the back by the looks of it actually. 1 here, 1 there. Ooh, we've got an awkwardly placed one between these horns. Just here. Pick him out from both sides. Very awkward spot. See, I feel like I'm missing some, and I know that I'm going to see them once I'm up to the next step. I'm not seeing any others, so maybe there aren't anymore. Who knows? No, that looks like all of them. All right, only 5. So we'll lay this all back with bail time now. And yeah, he's still in focus, mad. So wash them back. And like I said before, I didn't really have a plan for painting this guy. So I'm not sure if this is going to work out. If it doesn't, that's okay. I mean, it's Nurgle, it's chaos. Vibrant, weird colors generally tend to work well, no matter which way you go with these guys. And that's the thing I've been kind of enjoying with Nurgle. They are usually dark, they are grimy, but I generally tend to enjoy painting brighter, more vibrant color. So incorporating that into Nurgle and doing something a little bit different has been both challenging and enjoyable. So if we add some ivory to this green now, careful not to get too much out because I don't want to have to waste too much green. That's probably a little bit bright. Some more green in there, there we go. And then we can layer, highlight all of these maggots. So just going sideways, just want to pick out all the tops of the bulges on all the maggots. So that works all right. I mean, it's not a super realistic maggot, but it's a zombie. It's a zombie with horns growing out of its head and back, holding a wrench. Doesn't need to be ultra realistic. I'm not going to be able to go sideways on this maggot, unfortunately. I'm just going to have to be a bit careful not to get green on the horns. There we go. So that's the front ones done. And now the 2 back ones. Awesome. Now, the last thing, which I missed just before. Actually, the last 2 things. I get this in frame. And I tilt it the right way. My God, this is hard getting it in frame, looking at an upside down screen. There we go. We'll pick out his tongue. So I'm gonna use some Game Color Warlord Purple. Just shake it up a fair bit because I haven't used it in a while. The thinner is separated from the pigment a bit. There we go. Get out just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of it. So I can pick out the tongue on the inside of the mouth. There we go. I'm just going to hit that very quickly with a hairdryer. back in focus. There we go. Should have finished up the drying process. So what I'm going to do is now just hit the inside of the mouth with some Druchii Violet, just to shade that back. Don't need to worry about the detail in there too much, but that'll give it some depth for what it's worth. And now the last step is the teeth. So I'll hit this with a with the hairdryer again, just because I don't want to get purple wash mixed in with the white on the teeth, because that's going to get real messy real quick. So I'll do that. There we go. Now, if we get some just Vallejo straight white as I knock the camera. And oh, that's oozing out. Just get that there. And get the tiniest bit on our brush. And get the Poxwalker back in focus. And pick out the teeth. Alrighty, that's that done. So we've got him on a base now, and he's all done. So hopefully that helped you guys. Please leave comments, constructive criticism, what I can do better next time, because I want to get better at this. I've done tutorials in the past, but they were just crappy ones recorded with my phone. I mean, they've been received well, but I still don't feel like they were very good. So hopefully this helps you guys out, and thank you once again for supporting me on Patreon. It means the world. Let me know what you'd like to see next.